Buy or sell the Qatar stock market ETF. First off, read this disclaimer carefully and do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. So Qatar is here, it's in the Middle East category, and we do have a 29% move here from the 52-week low, and we are at 52-week highs. As such, this stock market has held up pretty darn well. So here is the chart, weekly data points, and we do have a pretty huge move that's been going on for some time. This recent big move comes from this double bottom, and we have seen a pretty substantial move so far, which begs the question, how much more is left? If we look here, there are some kind of time cycles, but they have differed a bit in duration. But the key thing about this ETF and this stock market is that it is very clear that it moves in these major waves, like up and down, up and down, up and down. That makes it pretty good to buy after a pullback, but it also makes it risky to go bullish after a substantial rally. So let's here jump to the daily data points. So we see something just a bit more nuanced here. We see that on the dailies as well, it does have a strong tendency to move in these time cycles. The time cycles rise, decline, they have actually been a bit more surgical here on the daily data points. The time cycles do certainly suggest, the current time cycle, that this rising phase is towards the middle here of the time cycle, so there is the expectation of a pullback here heading towards April of this year. Then let's look at these other indicators that tells us about overbought and potentially some oversold levels. In this case with Qatar, we do see that it is very, very elevated. So looking here at MACD here on the top, we have a reading that is very similar to what we had back here, and that formed this major cycle high. Looking at the RSI, we have an extremely rare overbought reading. The previous time we had a similar RSI level on the weekly data point was here, that resulted in a pullback. So that's just something to take into account. The distance from the purple 20-week moving average, the 50-week, and blue 100-week, and the red 200-week moving average, they are all at extreme overbought levels. Could it go higher? Sure, but it's a lower probability. On the daily data points, the same thing. On the MACD, RSI, the PPOs, we have a very extreme overbought readings. Many times where we have had these readings, as an example on the MACD, like here, the identical level, pullback. Here as well, we did eventually see a significant pullback, so this is risky for bulls. But let's explore further. Then we will look a bit at seasonal expectations. So here is a pretty deep way to look at seasonality. On the left here we do have the classical seasonal tool I use, and then we do have this seasonality forecaster here to the right. Okay, so when we look here at the last 5 years, so looking here to the left, you see that February is the weakest month, though March and April are strong. To the right here in green we have the seasonality forecaster, and it simply takes the average of over the last 5 years, and it shows that there's a tendency for Qatar to strengthen here towards late March, but then substantially weaken here towards June. So that is definitively something to take into account here. So the bullish thing we do see is April. March does have a tendency to close higher, but there's only a 0.3% gain, and the average loss here for February is a whopping -5%. So yeah, over the last 5 years, we definitively see that there's expectation of weakness. So there could be a bit more upside, but more significant downside. And here, when we go full bore here to the left, looking at the last 9 years of data, February is weak, March is mediocre, but the problem is that May and June especially are very weak. So from the bull perspective, the bulls could of course bet bullishly on April, but April is sort of pinched between February, that is very weak, and then May and June. So it's a messy situation here for the bulls. Here we do have the trend lines automatically drawn by Finviz, and we are way above the trend channel, which is a sign of us being overbought. Looking here at the performance last year, 19%. So definitively we have seen a significant move. When we compared Qatar with the S&P 500, looking here at beta, it is significantly lower here for Qatar. When we then look at price earnings ratio, we do see here that when we compare Qatar with the S&P 500, which is basically America, and we do the math, we do see that America is approaching 4% higher, but they are pretty close in terms of PE. When it comes to the dividend yield, 2% basically for Qatar and 1.22 for America. Here we can see the holdings. You see that a lot of nationalized companies here for Qatar: Qatar National Bank, Islamic Bank, Qatar Gas Transport. Not the most original names, but this is so typical of companies in the region. The interesting thing though about these kinds of companies versus what we have in America is that there is some significant moat by being this close to the government. So that is, you could flip that to be actually a positive in certain aspects, especially in times of crisis. It's not that bad to have a cozy relationship with the government. Looking at the sector breakdown, heavily tilted though towards the financial sector here for Qatar, massive. In America, we have way more balance. Market cap, pretty balanced here in Qatar, though, the S&P is a large cap index, so that is what we found there is to be expected. When we look at the correlations, 82% with the S&P 500, 88% with the crude oil, 83% with natural gas, and minus 46% with the dollar index. Daily data points, then we have 52% SPY, 77% crude oil, 45% natural gas, and 76% positive with the dollar index. So looking both long and short term, it certainly seems like the strongest correlation we do get is with crude oil. Hence, what happens to crude oil will have an impact, significant impact on Qatar. So here we have crude oil, and we do see on the weekly data points that we are very overextended here as well. A huge rally. Many weeks in a row we have seen a rally. The previous time we saw something similar is back here. That did result eventually in a sell-off. So that is just the facts. When we look here at the daily data points, then we see just corroborating that. Looking at the MACD and the other indicators, we are very overextended in one specific direction. Here I am comparing the S&P 500 against the Qatar, and we see that the S&P has substantially outperformed being stronger than Qatar for quite some time. Though we did form a bit of a double top pattern here, and we did see that the S&P has weakened against the Qatar, but that is not a huge surprise either, given that we saw this very strong super move recently in the Qatar stock market. So to sum up my take here for Qatar, when we look at the technicals, it is very clear that we are really severely overbought. Given that Qatar, both long-term and short-term, have a very strong tendency to move in these time cycles, meaning it goes up, but it also tends to go down. Further, when we looked at the seasonality data, it was pretty clear that there are some clouds here on the horizon, which could be beneficial to the bears. Looking at valuation, there certainly is not much value, at least in terms of comparing it to the S&P 500. So it is unlikely that funds invested in other markets are going to rotate out of them and then buy into Qatar because, well, there simply is not that much value in Qatar. It has gone up a lot. The asset which Qatar was most strongly correlated with, crude oil, that one is also very overbought and quote unquote due a pullback. So when we take all the data together, I think there's far more reasons to look for bearish opportunities in the Qatar stock market than bullish at this point in time. If you want access to all the educational material, you just go here to this website, and the content here in this VIP access is growing very, very steadily. So the value is just absolutely ridiculous.